My name is Jaxson Derr, and I'm going to be taking you through how I make one of these comic book pages. So there are a lot of different ways you can go about to making comic books, but my particular role might be a little bit different than other people. A lot of times in the industry, it'll pass from person to person. So one person will do sketching, one person will ink the page, and the next person might color the page. Since I am the one and only comic book artist on this project though, I do all three of those things. I look at the script that was provided for me, and then I create a sketch based off of that in outline, and then I go into inking, and then of course coloring. So I'll be taking you through those steps today, and hopefully it's fun, you learn a little something, and you get a little bit of behind the scenes insight on how one of these comic books is made. Just really quickly, if any of you are wondering what kind of drawing tablet I use and everything like that, first I'd like to say that you can make fantastic artwork without having really expensive equipment. I did it for years. I only got this Cintiq a few years ago, and before that I was making work that I still am very proud of. That being said, if you have the money and if art is much more than a hobby to you, and again you have the money to spend, then I highly recommend this Cintiq. It is a Wacom Cintiq 24-inch touch, so I'm able to touch it obviously, but it's sensitive to your fingers. This is the stylus right here, which is very light and easy grip. It's plugged into this Mac computer right here, which is also very good. It's a MacBook Pro. I use headphones as well, these ones, Soundcore headphones. They're also sound canceling, which is really useful whenever I want to really get in and work on something and listen to music at the same time. Sometimes I'll listen to the score that was made for this particular comic book, this animated comic book, so I'll be listening to that. I also have this Bluetooth Logitech keyboard here, which is also not cheap, but is very worth it. For so long I was still using my computer keys and working like this, which can really hurt your back and your arm, but now I get to kind of place this right on my lap, and I get to move this towards me. It's on a little stand, so you can flip it and you can make it right next to you. And then I'll just be having one hand down here on my lap, which is where the keyboard is, and I'll just kind of work like this. So it's a lot more comfortable than doing this, so highly recommend that as well. Again, if you are very serious about making comic books and you want to do something like this, I can't recommend anything better that I would know. So without any further ado, we're going to jump right in, and I'm going to take you on to the sketching phase and kind of show you a little bit how all that works. Alright, so taking you through this particular scene, we meet the character Piggy in his apartment. He's staring at the TV, watching the news. The window that we saw on the previous page is going to be right over here, hinted at. We have the lamp light right here, which is going to provide a very warm kind of lighting situation, whereas this TV is going to project more of a colder, cooler look, so that this page has some dynamicism to it, whilst also kind of explaining how Piggy is feeling in this particular moment, which is not very good. Kind of tired, kind of worn out, a little bit upset, and then soon we'll see him get a little bit more nervous as the news anchor talks about the ghost. So this panel, or this page rather, is going to be comprised of 5 different panels. The first one's going to be a simple setting up shot, which I just explained. The next 3 panels are going to be the reporter talking. So we'll see these kind of as boxes, as if he was looking at the television himself. And then the final page is going to be a much closer up shot of Piggy, much more nervous now, looking more closely at the television at what the news reporter has to say. So in this next particular section, or this panel rather, it is going to be a close-up shot, and I'm reading off of the script here, a close-up shot of the TV reporter, a rough sketch of the ghost next to her, and the ghost is going to be talking about the vigilante called the Reaper. So we are going to try and draw that real quick. Now for this particular news reporter, it's actually based off of a news reporter that was often seen in the animated series. Let me see. And the news channel is GC1, and the reporter's name is Summer Gleason. So we're going to be doing our own version of Summer Gleason here for this particular comic. As much as I like to have fun with changing things up, there is something special about seeing a character like from the Batman animated series, watching that brought into live action for the first time. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the bar set down here. This is GC1. And one thing you might see me do and change as we work on this page is that not everything is permanent, especially not in the first sketching phase. Now, whenever I sketch something down, it doesn't necessarily stick to that exclusively. So whenever I am working on these, since I am going to be the only person working on this particular comic book project, I don't have to outline everything perfectly, right? So what that basically means is if I was just the sketching artist and I was passing this on to someone else to do for inking and someone else to do for coloring, this would be a lot more refined, so that there's no guessing of what they have to do in their own jobs. But since I'm the only one working on this, I get to kind of decide what to put detail on, what to not put detail on, and I can fix something up later. It's just kind of the workflow of how I go about doing this. And since this particular image of Summer Gleason on this news reporter, this banner is going to stay the same, I'm just going to copy it over and move it to the next one. So another great thing about digital is you don't have to draw literally everything over and over again all the time. And there you go. So those are the three little spots. Now for Summer Gleason herself. In the Batman animated series, she has kind of his orangish type hair with a teal suit, which I kind of want to emulate later on whenever we get to coloring. But for right now, I'm looking at an image of her on my little on my side view here. I don't think you can see that, my little reference, but I'm looking at a Batman animated series version of her. So this version's gonna be a little bit different because it's real life. It's not a cartoon, obviously. So it's going to look a little bit different. One thing I do like about her, though, at least in the Batman animated series, that she does have a very strong jaw. And I think keeping that within the design, I think, is going to be pretty important. Now for something like this, I'm kind of making up some of it as I go, in terms of what the shapes are and what I might want them to look like. Nothing is refined, nothing is perfect, especially in this sketching phase. That you're allowed to be kind of loose with everything, which is a very nice feeling, I must admit. Now, what you also might notice, at least this is what people have told me, I don't really consider myself to be a very fast sketcher, but apparently people say I'm fast, so if you also happen to think that I'm a pretty fast sketcher, I think that has to do with me not liking to overthink or spend a lot of time on something. So don't feel pressured to go super fast, but at the same time it does keep everything a little bit loose. And I've found that that can really help a lot of artists starting out, because I know we like to do chicken scratch like this, want to make everything perfect, don't be afraid to be loose with it, you know, especially in digital where you can just Command Z. That would be a good point of advice there. So now as we get onto her face, I think I might have made this a little bit too... I did like her strong jaw, but I kind of want to bring it back a little bit. So I think what I'm going to do... I'd be a bit more pointed. Still have that strong jaw, but not as crazy looking. Another thing I like to do is flip the image to make sure everything looks okay from the opposite side. This is looking pretty good. I think this sleeve should be going down a little bit, like right there. And this ear is looking a little bit wonky, so I might look a little bit more like that. Her eyebrows are very thin in see, this is a lot of what might be a little bit harder for me to talk during some of this because I'm kind of working on the fly here. I want her expression to not be extremely scared, but also not happy, overly happy, because she is talking about some very scary news here. But being a news reporter, I don't think that she would be, you know, as news reporters go, even if they're talking about something really bad, they don't overly express a little bit too much. So I'm going to try and keep that similar kind of vein of thinking here. I think this neck can be brought back a little bit. So let me bring it back over and flip it again so we can make sure that everything is looking alright. Let's zoom out a little bit just to see what that looks like. So just from that zoom out, I can kind of tell that her suit is a little bit big, whereas her neck and head is a little bit too small. So I'm going to size it up just a little bit, bring it back, and that already is looking a lot better. Another great thing about digital is that you can do something like that and fix things pretty easily. I did want her to be slightly turned in this particular image, just so that she's kind of like turning towards the audience still, whilst also talking about what's going to be over here projected. And speaking of what's going to be projected in this particular panel, she is going to be talking, and she is going to be saying, once thought to be a copycat of the infamous vigilante, the Reaper, the GCPD has confirmed the two are unrelated. So we're going to have a sketch of the ghost next to her, which is the villain of this comic, if you didn't know. And for this rough sketch, this is going to be kind of fun because I get to kind of play around with stuff. She's probably going to stand in front of a green screen, so I can put some graphics, some lines behind her and everything. And for this sketch, we can kind of do our own thing with it. So they probably don't have a lot of detail in the mask. they can have it be a little bit sketchy. You know, if we're looking at the Reaper from a distance, you're gonna notice this scythe, or this scythe? I'm pretty sure it's scythe. We can have it be really sketchy. Looking at it from a distance, I think that sells it pretty well. Well, I don't know how I feel about adding the smoke there. I think I'm gonna get rid of that real quick. But yeah, I kind of really like the way that looks. So that's kind of my my process for it. I kind of go super quickly. So now we're gonna move on, and I'm gonna try and get these other two panels done here. Alright, so now that we have all of those 3 panels done, you can kind of tell where I'm leaning with this. So we start off with her talking about the ghost on this side, then she's here in the middle with these 3 images in the back of the crime scenes that the ghost has left behind. We see a little bit of expression of her hands, different pose on the body here, and then on this page, this panel rather, we have it on the opposite end of where she's looking. But the main difference is that her expression is clearly changed, and I zoomed in a little bit as well to add some more effect to that. This eye graphic here is also going to hopefully grab the reader's attention for this page in particular. And whenever she is talking throughout this image here, I plan to kind of have it all lean into one big text right here, which I think would look pretty interesting. She is going to talk a little bit in this panel. We can just direct it from the TV into there, a very kind of rough look at things. And then for this final image here is going to be Piggy looking at the TV more intently now, much more nervous. I have a feeling I'm gonna like this panel just because I like really intense facial expressions and I love side profiles, and we have both of them with this character right here. So as for the description of this final panel, it's going to be the camera is aimed at Porcello reacting to the news, and then it's just going to be a very intense kind of image of him looking down straight on at the image here. So I'm going to try and see if I can get his face right here and then move it to over here to use as reference. to make sure that whenever I do this side profile, that it does still look like him, because consistency is key when it comes to things like this. He has a very intense brow. He doesn't have a lot of hair, so I'm not going to make it too crazy with the eyebrows. A little scrunched up nose. Since the description of him is piggy, I figured that we could kind of maintain some of those attributes. He has a very kind of rounded off, protruding snout, kind of like a pig. It's kind of like what you do with Penguin when you design Penguin, is that he has a very pointed nose and such, so I figured it could be kind of fun to emulate that a little bit here with him. And of course, being the bad guy that he is not going to have straight teeth. It's not happening. I don't know why I do that. Just when I imagine these guys, I don't imagine them caring what their teeth look like. His shoulder right here, kind of slouched over a little bit. And of course, some things are bound to change. Things really do, at least for me, whenever I'm looking at things seem to really come together once the inking process starts to happen. So I'm very excited to get into that, because I think that will really aid in making this page the best it can be. So we're having to be a little bit scared here. He's gonna have a little bit of hair on his chinny chin chin. Just to add to it a little bit. His little ear poking out, kind of like a pig ear. I'm just being really mean to this character design, but it adds to it, I think. And a lot of this back here is going to be in shadow. This, I want to put X's here. This is just going to be black at this point, right back there. Alright, and that actually went by a little bit quicker than I thought it would. Now, let me just do this real quick, just to make sure. Alright, paste. Yeah, him up here. Listen, all these look pretty good to me. And then, of course, this image right here of him looking straight on, which I gotta admit, I really do like. I love doing side profiles. One of my favorite things to do. But yeah, okay. So he's gonna be staring at the TV. So I'm gonna create a new folder. So based on the kind of ratio, this TV is a little bit bigger than his neck and head. Therefore, I don't think it would be. I think it would be fair to say that it could go right here. And then, of course, this part is actually going to be the main part of the TV, so I'm going to be a bit rounded, because that's kind of what these box TVs have, is a little bit of a rounded kind of screen to them. So I'm going to maintain that there. And there's going to be a big shadow, not a big shadow, Or just a shadow right here. A lot of this actually is going to be like that. One thing I love to do is stuff like this, where it just adds little details here and there, scrapes on the television. This thing is quite old, not very well taken care of, like Piggy himself, I guess you could say. But yeah. Now what I think I'm gonna have it do is just trying to stay safe. I kind of want that. And of course I'm gonna have to make sure that all of that should be just completely black. Okay, and there we go. That is basically our page all sketched out. This is kind of where I like to leave it in terms of the sketching phase. And now in the next part of this, we are going to move on to the inking. That's where the real fun starts to begin for me. Is whenever we do the inking and everything, because you get to add details you weren't able to add before, really make those lines permanent and make a lot of things stand out.